I've lived in Macaulay for 17 years, 5 years in South Macaulay along 95th Street and 12 years in North Macaulay. And what I've noticed throughout those 17 years is a marked increase both in street prostitution along the busy streets, that is the solicitation aspect, as well as the impact of traffic and garbage. In my own area, many prostitutes bring their customers to our house because we have a hedge and they have a sense of privacy. So at 10 in the morning, at noon, at 4, and throughout the evening, I have seen cars parked with sexual acts taking place.
The Norwood Neighborhood Association, as the overview, is one of education, trying to educate the community into knowing all of the different areas of the prostitution area, such as in the neighborhoods, especially the schools and the playground. This summer, especially the playground will be having searches every morning from the parents going around checking for the used condoms and needles. And all through the spring year, there was the principals and the teachers out checking around the fences around the school ground, making sure that nobody stepped on or picked up a used condom. As my job or my position here at the center, I have to deliver a lot of flyers to these homes, to mailboxes, and I have encountered 3 or 4 along the streets as I'm walking, delivering the flyers. So no, there aren't piles in the gutters of used condoms, but it is a problem. We had an incident in just outside the Norwood area of a young child picking up a psychedelic blue condom thinking it was a bright, pretty balloon, and she blew it up. And that is the scariest thing that could ever happen. The school authorities took her right away, and they took her to get AIDS tested and checked her out, cleaned her right away, and she has tested negative to the AIDS virus. But to think that my child could pick up one of these and blow it up just makes me ill. It horrifies me and scares me to death. And to think that that happened to a little girl in this neighborhood really scares me. Thursday nights, Friday nights, it is very, very busy. The 95th Avenue or 95th Street is exceptionally busy. It's an influx of traffic. They slow down when there are the women on the street. They slow right down. It causes, not traffic jams, of course, but slows down the traffic. The traffic keeps these people up at all hours, especially if they're honking and making noises out the window. It is quite disruptive of their evening and their security with their family. The neighbors in this area, if they're not at work and they stay at home, yes, they are fairly prisoners. The ones that aren't getting involved are scared. They're not aware of all the facts. They're not aware of what the AAJ is all about. We have tried to tell them what Action Against Johns does. It's not a group that goes out and accosts these women or are rude to these women. They just ask them to keep moving on, get away from our playgrounds and our schools. And I guess the awareness to these people, they're just too scared to come out. And so I guess they are prisoners in their own homes. There's a lot of people who have, the mother and father working, and when they come home, they have their family, and they don't go out, and when they do, they don't do it in this neighborhood. They don't partake in things that are happening in the neighborhood, but other parts of the city. There's no security there. They don't feel safe in their backyards. We've had 2 women already who've been out in their backyards gardening, and Johns have stopped while going down the back alley and asked them how much for their services right in their own backyard. That doesn't give a woman very much security to stay at home. The statistics on the neighborhood are, I think it is 60 and 40% renters, but the renters are high transient, very high transient. Prostitutes that do live in the area, that work this strip, they have moved into the area. It's closer, they feel safer.
You don't get people buying houses to live here. You get more of a transient population of renters who rent out these vacant houses because nobody wants to live here or own homes here, so they rent. And then, I don't want to paint all these individuals with the same brush, but many of them contribute to the associated crimes that come along with prostitution. That is the drugs. I mean, we have drug houses here. Petty crimes, break-and enters, vandalism, auto theft. And these are done by many of the transient renters. And those renters are able to live here because people don't want to buy houses here, and so it causes a market for low-income transient renters.
It happened in November. I picked up a date. We went back to a hotel, and everything was going all hunky-dory, and the guy went psycho. He took off his condom, proceeded to do things to me that he don't pay me enough to do. He beat me, held me in a room, and he threatened to kill me.
They're absolute victims of violence. There are many different forms of it. Of course, you have the classic battered wife syndrome, which applies to many of them, but they are victims of violence on just about every front. Victims of violence from their pimps, victims of violence from their johns. Some of them continue to be victims of violence from incestuous relationships and so on and so forth. The violence that they have to endure can be extremely graphic and in most cases more violent than just your regular family fight. We have a case where a female had her clitoris cut off by her pimp, basically over a dispute I won't get into at this particular moment, but basically if he wasn't going to have her, no one was going to have her. Out came the knife and he basically maimed her at that point. Prostitutes, we must also understand that prostitutes are victims of violence amongst themselves. There's territorial disputes, there's disputes being prompted as a result of their pimp's urging, there's financial disputes if they're charging different prices. We've had 2 girls within the last 2 months, well, actually 4 girls involved, but 2 of them have resulted in a hospitalization resulting from numerous stab wounds. One was stabbed 13 times. The other was stabbed, I think, a total of 3 times. Both required hospitalization. Both were committed on them by other prostitutes as a result of these kind of disputes. Bad dates are an enormous problem. In fact, one girl, for instance, last winter here when it was minus 30, minus 32, we interviewed and took a statement from because she had been picked up by a John driven east of the city on Highway 14, approximately 10 miles out, taken to a road. She was stripped down, she was sodomized, she was raped, she was forced to perform fellatio. Her clothes were then taken from her, and she was forced to get out and walk. It was minus 30-some degrees. She was fortunate that somebody came by in less than a minute and picked her up and brought her back in. Had she not been so fortunate, then she too would have joined the ranks of deceased females as a result of this. The prostitute, by the mere occupation, lends itself to a murder which a person could conceivably escape from scot-free. She's out there. She doesn't have a whole lot of contacts with most people. In fact, by her sheer nature of her occupation, can disappear for days without anybody wondering or worrying. She has to get picked up with all kinds of strangers. She's an absolute mark. We're going to see more of it in this city. I have every confidence we will, because we're certainly seeing it everywhere else in North America. And there will be an increase here for sure, I have no doubt.
Last week, we entered our 5th year with Crossroads and working the streets here. In that time, I can't count on both hands a night that we haven't met someone new. You know, I mean, they're young. Let me give you, for instance. I mean, and why are they? And this is not an occupation. This is not a profession, and this is not a choice that a young child makes. We had a girl that came into our house 2 Fridays ago. At the time, she was 15. The week previously, she was 14. She lost her virginity to a John on the streets. Now you tell me that this is what she chose to do and that this was her plan. I mean, there is a memory that will stay with her for the rest of her life that she won't be able to shake, is losing her virginity. And how did she do it? She'll come up with a lie that will appease her friends and herself a little bit. And yes, she's going to need counseling to deal with that. But, you know, how devastating for a young child to have to experience that in such a way. The number of prostitutes that we're seeing on the street, we try and keep accurate stats, 520 girls that have worked within the last year that we've had contact with. Out of that number, 345, 46 are under the age of 21. Okay, so it gives you the idea of the number of juveniles and young children. At the same time, the numbers that are under the age of 16 that are working the streets is 35 that are currently working the street. I assisted a girl with a murder trial in Vancouver, and at the time she was 16 years old. And to have to listen to the graphics as far as you know, her having to wipe up the blood of her friend who had just been killed, had her skull caved in. Here's a 16-year-old girl, you know, who she presumes that she is going to die also, is forced to, with a mop or with a rag and a pail, to clean up the blood of her dead friend. You know, these are things that children, you know, that are having. Think about this: these kids are experiencing horrors that the average person will never experience in a lifetime, and yet these girls are doing it on a nightly basis. As soon as a girl gets in a car, she has no idea whether she's coming back alive. As soon as this guy takes a wrong turn, she's in a panic. You know, it's like right away survival instincts. It's like, do I fight him? Do I give in to him? Do I try and talk him out of it? We're only going 40 kilometers an hour. Should I jump out? I mean, all these things are going through a child's head that should be going through, what do I have for homework tomorrow? You know, who borrowed my albums? And yet here they are questioning whether or not they're going to come back alive. I think a lot of people are still under the mindset that prostitution is a sex trade. It's not. It's power control and it's abuse. I mean, we wouldn't have bad days if that wasn't the case. I mean, it has nothing to do with sex. It's the Johns wanting the power and control. There are the few guys that probably, you know, they've been married for 50 years, the wife's died, they have the urge. So, I mean, there is that rare example where a guy is going to come out the streets for that. But for the most part, it's violence. It's straight violence. It's a power and control. It's a dominating. You know, it's be able to have them in the back seat of the car and be hunkered over them, and be able to have their way. I mean, there's not one girl out there that has not been sexually abused or assaulted since she's been on the street. Not one. And that gives you an idea of the amount of violence that's coming from the Johns. It has nothing to do with sex. It's strictly power and control. Most of the women out there, they're not out there for the glamour. It's they need the money for whatever. Like I say, a lot of times it's for food or shelter. In other cases, yes, it is a drug addiction. But you will only see them out there when they need the money, and you don't see them on a nightly basis. Some women I don't see for a couple of months at a time, right? And like I say, it's just to get whatever money it is, however much money it is that they need, and then you don't see them again.
Well, violence on the street goes without saying. It's part of the scenario. As far as pimps go, pimps are usually violent with their women because it's a way of control. I've seen them beat them on the street, drag them by their hair. I've seen women with black eyes, split lips, and still sent out to work. As far as Johns go, Johns see us as vulnerable, easy prey. From a Johns perspective, I guess they figure that society really doesn't care, we're just hookers anyway. So, I mean, they're not going to get into that much trouble. Other women are violent with other women because they can't stand competition. It's sort of saying, if you made more money than I am, that means you're better than I am, and it's a put down, and it provokes violence. I myself have been victimized by Johns. One John attempted to rape me. I got away by talking my way out of it. I reported it to Crossroads, of course. I've been threatened with a knife. I wasn't cut. I was beaten in Toronto very badly by two men who had me in the car. And of course, I was young. I didn't know I shouldn't go with two men, and went, took a chance, got beaten very badly. I couldn't work for almost 2 weeks. My ex-husband broke my leg. That goes without saying. Beatings and violence are part of the scenario.
It now lies in the judge's laps. And that's because we have the police working on this. We have the police who are targeting more of the Johns, focusing on the pimps. We have the communities who are out picketing and making the public aware that they want changes. We have street outreach services that are focusing hard and heavy on the girls. We have the city and the task force happening, trying to look at options. We have social services that have provided 5 houses, new houses to the inner city to help deal with the problem. Okay, man, we got everybody in the ball game. It's the judge's turn at bat. You know, let's try it. Let's put some teeth in the law. Let's try it. Let's try something and see if it works. We have the law. Let's use it. We got to quit saying that we have it's such a rotten laws and the laws don't work if we don't use the law to the fullest extent that we can. You know, yes, I know it's inconceivable that a first offender John, is going to get a $1,000 fine. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at what a first offense fine is for a drunk driver. If I'm not mistaken, it's around $600–700. It's making a statement that society does not tolerate drinking and driving. Society will not tolerate prostitution. And I think the more people understand the inner workings of what prostitution is, as far as the violence and the degradation and the diseases, that they'll appreciate more why we have so many people trying to eliminate a lot of the issues of prostitution in this city.
There is no area of tolerance in the city. There is no area where prostitution can be run carte blanche without fear of being charged by the police. Our department stands that we don't believe in it and will continue to do so. However, we have an area of what I would call management, where we have girls who are in certain areas of the city. Because they're there, we're attempting to manage the activity within that, but that certainly does not give them carte blanche to continue criminal activity. We don't have the legal tools and means by way of the criminal code to effectively deal with the problem of prostitution, mainly street prostitution. We just don't have the laws that are going to assist us with respect to making prostitution illegal. We have very good laws with respect to pimping offenses. Those are terrific, and they come down with large sentences. But with respect to the prostitute and her activity of prostitution itself, solicitation is a summary conviction offense, and it comes down in terms of a fine if they were to make prostitution illegal. We need more tools.